Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 8 of the Bandwagon Hockey Podcast. We are here on this Sunday afternoon after a busy Saturday night filled with games and rumors that we will get to. Might be a longer pod. There's actually significant amount of things sort of stirring. Some significant things that went down in some of the games last night, as well as some stuff going on off the ice that definitely requires some attention. But first things first, Ryan, what's up?
Doing good. It's just an exciting sports week in general. Obviously I'm pumped up with all the hockey action going around, but it was also the NBA trade deadline. And then obviously today is Super Bowl Sunday. So it's kind of just been a really exciting sports week in general. How you been?
I'm good. I wore a bunch of Eagles stuff out last night. I wore just like an Eagles hat, but then my t-shirt, the t-shirt I wore to the bar was, it says, I got it in Philly when I went to the Eagles game against Green Bay. It says, on the front, it says, Jalen fucking Hurts. And on the back, it says, bitch, I'm an Eagle.
That's electric.
It's awesome, and so many people told me they like their shirt. That's the thing. I love that so much. I personally get fired up when people compliment a t-shirt or if you're wearing a cool hat, if someone says something, it pumps me up, it feels validating. So I like to say it to other people all the time. But I'm not gonna lie, when I put that shirt on, I was like, I need so many compliments tonight, or else this would be a failure, especially with the Super Bowl tomorrow.
It feels like a lot more people are going for the Eagles. Just from who I've talked to anyways.
I'm literally not going to lie. Well, okay, so reason number A is because there's a lot of Bills fans around here, and that's a bit of a rivalry, Kansas City, Buffalo. Same with Cincinnati. Ohio's not too far. It's not as far as Philly anyway. Or no, it's not as far as Kansas City anyway. And also Philly's pretty close to around here. It's a East Coast team. But then I think the big thing is people despise Patrick Mahomes' family.
Oh yeah, I've seen some
his brother and wife. His brother on TikTok is extremely obnoxious. Last year, they were in their box seats, and after they won a playoff game, they were both spraying champagne over a bunch of people. And the people were noticeably not having it, so they got a lot of hate for that. And Patrick Mahomes' wife, I forget her name. I think it's Brittany.
Yeah,
and
I think it's
Brittany Mahomes, she's very rude. She's been caught on tape being very rude to people in the past. So it's just not people just root against that. And unfortunately, it comes back onto Patrick Mahomes because Patrick Mahomes is the NFL's version of Stephen Curry. He's already an all-time great. And I personally like to root for greatness, but definitely a lot of people don't really care either way and have their preferences made by off-field stuff, which isn't ideal, but I'm an Eagles fan, so I don't care.
Yeah, who cares?
But it'll be sick. It's actually in a few hours. I'm low-key almost as excited for it, or I'm almost as excited for Rihanna's halftime show as I am for the game itself, because Rihanna hasn't performed in years.
Oh my god, man, it's gonna be so good. I was going through her This Is Rihanna Spotify soundtrack or whatever it's called, playlist. Actually, it's just banger after banger after banger. So I'm excited. It should be it's got a lot of promise, so I'm excited. They should nail it.
Yeah, it's gonna be really good. It would take a monumental collapse for it to not go well, because she's got so many songs and she's such an amazing performer. It'd be cool to see if they have any guest appearances, which I'm
sure there will be.
There's probably gonna be a rapper or two where people are gonna be like, holy crap, that's insane. I don't know. It'll be good. But let's talk about some hockey for a bit.
In the smack dab in the middle of NBA trade deadline, the craziness of everything that went on there, we got a pretty significant hockey trade.
Yeah, one of the biggest dominoes to fall ahead of trade deadline, which isn't for another. For whatever reason, I thought the deadline was March 9th. It's actually March 3rd. The reason I thought that was because the NBA deadline was February 9th. So I thought March 9th. So it's actually March 3rd. So it's in 3 weeks. St. Louis traded forward Vladimir Tarasenko and defenseman Niko Mikkola to the Rangers in exchange for Sammy Blais, Hunter Skinner, who's a prospect, a conditional 2023 first, and a conditional fourth in 2024. And I believe I know the condition on the first is that it's the worst of the Rangers' 2 picks between Dallas and themselves. So that'll probably be in the mid to late 20s, potentially even 30s, depending how either team does in the playoffs. And then I think the conditional 4th just becomes a 3rd if the Rangers make the playoffs, which they're going to. So
that's essentially it.
It's essentially a late 1st and a 3rd. So it feels weird like we haven't gone through this trade yet. I can't remember. I guess our last pod would have been Tuesday, and the trade deadline or the trade went down on Thursday.
Yeah,
so it's been a few days. But what were your initial thoughts on the trade?
I thought it was a pretty smart move from the Rangers, to be honest, to kind of get ahead of the trade deadline. And everyone was just essentially marrying Patrick Kane to them, which we can get into later as well.
Also, Tarasenko 50% retained. Sorry, forgot to mention that.
Yeah, which is pretty significant because I think that leaves the Rangers room to do something else as well. Maybe you can pull that up. But I thought it was a pretty smart move from the Rangers, especially since they have those 2 first-round picks. They go out and get a scorer that they've been really looking for somebody to fill that spot on the top line. So now they have a pretty sweet top line in Zibanejad, Tarasenko, and Panarin. And we've already kind of seen some dividends pay off there with their last couple games here. So I thought it was smart. They didn't have to give up too much. And they also got a depth defenseman back too, which is always helpful in playoffs.
Well, yeah, he's going to play. Like, he's going to be in their lineup, in their playoff lineup. Like, I think he's going to play with Braden Schneider to start. I think I read somewhere. So, no, like, you kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone there. Like, you get your top line forward who's going to score hopefully a handful of playoff goals for you, and you get like a bottom 4 defenseman kind of thing in Nico Mikkola. So like I think it's a great trade for the Rangers, and I really like that you brought up that you appreciated the fact that they sort of got out ahead of things because the biggest sort of question mark going into deadline is like the weirdest. It's a weird vibe to the deadline so far because arguably the 2 biggest pieces that are available are Patrick Kane and Timo Meier. And Patrick Kane doesn't know if he wants to be traded, and Timo Meier isn't a rental. So it's like it's kind of a sticky situation where neither of those players or the teams really know what they want to do yet. And so it's kind of smart because those probably would have been the Rangers' top 2 targets in terms of a forward group, along with Tarasenko. So they kind of pivot and grab Tarasenko early before either the price goes up because those other guys get traded or what have you. Yeah, well,
the reason they really jumped out in front of this was because their main trade target, or at least kind of the media, the way it was kind of putting it was Patrick Kane was going to go to the Rangers at the deadline, but it's now coming out that the Rangers were very concerned about the price that they were going to have to pay for Patrick Kane, and 2, very concerned about his actual health. Like apparently his hip injury is nowhere close to being 100%. I think he has just started skating again, or maybe that was Taves. I'm not sure. I don't quite remember, but like there's a lot of concern still surrounding Patrick Kane and whether he can actually be an impact player.
And that's the thing is like Patrick Kane, I hate to say this, as of right now, Patrick Kane is just a big name. Like he is not a difference maker for a team right now. Like I'm sorry. And it feels outrageous to say that, but if you look at his numbers, he's only got 9 goals this season. I mean,
I was listening to a podcast. I forget exactly which one, but they were like, the only reason you're trading for Patrick Kane at this point is for the potential X factor that Patrick Kane comes back to what he was. Yeah. And that is a big if. It's a massive if for what you would be giving up and like the salary you're bringing back instead of something else.
And it honestly feels like it hadn't been discussed enough prior to sort of the Rangers putting that out there, which I think Chicago's pissed about. Like he just hasn't performed this season, but people have still talked about him being like the biggest deadline name and stuff like that, which he is because his name's Patrick Kane. But like in terms of actual production and the impact he would have, he's got 9 goals this year, playing And he's not producing like Patrick Kane normally produces. And so he's obviously not healthy. And we've discussed in the past, I think the best sort of way to move forward is for him to sign a 1-year deal, cheaper than 10.5 a year. It'll be easier to get rid of him next year with a trade. He'll have more time to mentally prepare himself. He'll be healthy, just etc. So many reasons. But I kind of liken Patrick Kane's sort of trade deadline status to that of Ryan O'Reilly. Like Ryan O'Reilly's name's being thrown around alongside first-round pick acquisition, and I'm like, if someone trades a first-round pick for Ryan O'Reilly, I will laugh at them. I will laugh at them.
If anyone puts that on the table, the St. Louis Blues should be taking it and running.
I would be shocked. Like if you're throwing a first-round pick at Ryan O'Reilly or at St. Louis for Ryan O'Reilly, you are trading a first-round pick for a third-line face-off guy. As this point.
Yeah,
he has 17 points this season in 38 games, and it looks like he skates with cement boots on.
And he's like publicly said he doesn't want to move either. So you're probably getting him pissed off as well.
And at that point, like I'm almost worried that St. Louis, like from St. Louis's perspective, I'm worried that they're going to try to extend him because that's the kind of thing GMs do. They re-sign nostalgic players to bad contracts.
Like, do you extend him one more year if he's willing to take that to see if he's willing to move next year? Or, like, otherwise, why is it even worth bringing him back?
I don't think St. Louis has room. Their cap sheet is nasty. We took a look at it a few weeks ago. And, like, the Kyrou and Thomas contracts I don't think have kicked in yet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure. Let me go check that. But
I'm not sure on that. But like,
I know I've
seen a few people suggest that they might re-sign him, and it makes zero sense to me.
No, it'd be shocking. I'd be angry, to be completely honest. Yeah, neither of Kyrou and Robert Thomas are both making $2.8 million next year. That jumps to $8.125. You don't have the space to bring back Ryan O'Reilly. I'm sorry,
It feels like it would be a sympathy deal if they do, to be honest, because he doesn't want to leave.
I totally agree. With that. That's actually like kind of a smart way to put it. I definitely agree. But yeah, so Tarasenko to the Rangers, huge deal. I'm looking forward to seeing some of these big names sort of
even though I really liked it for the Rangers too, I think the Blues recognizing that this is a time to start tearing this down and get a first-round pick, even though it's going to be late. Like, I don't think it was a terrible return either, even though the prospect, it appears to be like a nobody, essentially. Yeah. You get a first and a third. I mean, it's a pretty decent return for what Tarasenko is at this point.
I sneaky really love the idea of St. Louis sort of tanking the rest of the season. Like, trade O'Reilly, maybe have a couple guys, like, pull what the NBA does and, like, he's like, I don't know, injury maintenance or something. Or just like, this guy has, like, tendonitis. He's got to be shut down for the year. Start calling bruises contusions and throw guys on IR. Like, St. Louis is sneaky in that mix. Like, right now they would have the 8th best odds at the first overall pick. That's not insignificant. Like, they're 5 points clear of Montreal with the same number of games played. So that's going to be tough to catch them because both Montreal and Vancouver actually are right there at 46 points. St. Louis is at 51. Vancouver and Montreal are both currently in the middle of a nosedive in terms of like their play. So they're really getting in those sweepstakes. The bottom 7 seems pretty set in terms of top lottery odds, but St. Louis at the 8th best odds. Crazier things have happened in the lottery. That'd be a really cool spot for Connor Bedard, if I'm going to be completely honest.
It's also just hilarious that like they traded Sammy Blais to the Rangers, and he didn't score a single goal in his whole tenure with the Rangers, and then scored in his first game back with the Blues yesterday, I think, which was hilarious.
Hockey.
Love it.
All right, let's move on to some other big names in /rumors. Jakob Chychrun held out of his game last night for the Arizona Coyotes. Who did they play? Oh, they played St. Louis. What do you know? They lost 6-5 in overtime. Jakob Chychrun literally news got out, and I don't know if it was leaked or if it was explicitly said by someone in the Coyotes organization, but Jakob Chychrun was scratched last night due to like ongoing trade discussions, and I thought that was shocking.
Yeah, no, they explicitly said it. They tweeted it out.
Yeah, that's insane to me.
Like their transaction account or whatever it's called said Jakob Chychrun healthy scratch for trade related reasons.
And the thing that I'm most interested about that now is like that means a trade is imminent because like if you scratched him this time, that means they're going to keep scratching him until he's dealt. Like he's not going to now just play again.
So people are thinking that it's likely before their game Monday night because they did have games or days off or today off, I guess, between that. So I don't know if it didn't happen last night.
Drop the trade during the Super Bowl. That's something an NHL team would 100% do.
Or do you drop it Monday morning? Like there was some speculation that maybe it was the Kings and they just didn't want to do it on Dustin Brown night. But
okay, interesting. Man, the NHL coddles its players sometimes.
I know, it's ridiculous.
My God. No, so it's funny. I had a story I wanted to tell you. So I was at Heart and Crown last night, and I was just talking to a guy, like he commenting on my like Eagles stuff, and I just asked him if he liked hockey. He goes, "Yeah, big Sens fans, whatever." We're talking about it. He's like, "Did you see the trade?" And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Ottawa got Chychrun." I was like, "What?" Like I lost it. Like I hadn't checked my phone. I go on Instagram. I go to like the thing that he showed me was like a Sens fan account called Everyday Sens. It said Chychrun listed as out tonight due to ongoing trade discussions or whatever, but it like had the Sens graphic kind of. It's a Sens fan account. Yeah. And the guy like I guess interpreted as meaning Chychrun was dealt to the Sens, and I just looked at it and I was like, yeah, that's not it. But I got excited because he was excited, so I didn't want to like totally bum him out. So I went along with it, like, like we got Chychrun, but like,
that's devastating.
Oh, I know, dude, it was so brutal. I was so upset. Like
he was probably so like bummed out when he woke up this morning.
Oh yeah, it was funny. Yeah, that stuff sucks. Like when you're not paying attention to your phone, you're just having a good time, and someone drops something on you, so then. Like sports news on you, so then you just become obsessed with figuring out the details. So you go on your phone when you're like in a loud setting, kind of thing. But it is what it is. No Chychrun for the Sens yet, maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, that'd be cool if Chychrun gets dealt this early. It's really dragged on for the last year and a half.
It's been so long, man. I just want it to be over.
You can't have a conversation without mentioning. You can't have a conversation about trades without mentioning Jakob Chychrun's name. It's become exhausting.
Yeah, like we've gone to lengths where we've basically ignored it because it's talked about so often. But now it finally seems like it's going to come to an end here somehow.
Yeah, and it's at a point too where. What was I going to say? Oh, if he gets dealt, because I also read that Timo Meier trade discussions are heating up, and there was the Erik Karlsson rumor last night.
Yeah,
about the Oilers and what was the other team, or was it just the Oilers? Like they were.
I think it was just the Oilers that I saw.
They were like sort of pushing their cards a little further into the table in terms of pursuing Erik Karlsson from San Jose. And I thought that was fascinating. It's the wrong guy. It's the wrong guy. It's the wrong guy for Edmonton. That Edmonton should be going after Chychrun, but whatever. It's Ken Holland. It'll be. We're kind of lining up for a really boring deadline day. If all these big names get dealt,
the day itself may be really boring, yes, but like we actually might have some pretty fun trades to talk about here. Like I feel like normally the trade deadline is a lot of like second and third line players that just switch teams and may or may not make an impact. But so far we've seen like Horvat, Tarasenko. We're talking about Karlsson, Meier. Like there's big names on the move, it appears. So like, although we might not get an exciting day in itself, it seems like the period leading up to it might get a little bit interesting.
Yeah, we're talking about a 30-goal power forward, a guy who's already at 30 goals, might score 40, well, easily going to score 40, and the guy who's probably the front runner for the Norris being traded from the same team, no less.
Yeah.
Could be pretty wild. Okay, Ryan, like we got a whole bunch of different sort of topics. Where do you want to go to next? I know you've got a list. We can maybe bounce through them a little bit. But that's sort of all the trade talk that went down last night.
Well, we can quickly run through the Sens updates too that kind of came out of that whole thing as well. So I guess the biggest kind of thing in terms of trade news is that it's being reported now that it's very likely that the Sens are going to move on from Nikita Zaitsev before the trade deadline, and that the cost to do so is going to be somewhere around a second-round pick, which I don't know if I love at this point, just because, like,
what's the point now?
You can buy him out in the offseason and the numbers aren't that terrible going forward. So I'm not sure why they would do that unless it's part of something bigger like Chychrun. So who knows? And then the one other note was that teams are calling on Alex DeBrincat like we knew, but they've completely shut down all rumors that they will consider trading him before the deadline. So they're going to keep him and let kind of new ownership settle in whenever they get here and take a run at that contract when they do. So it's interesting, a little bit of news as well.
That's going to be fascinating. It's good. It could make for a really interesting offseason for RFAs between DeBrincat's negotiations with the Sens and Timo Meier, with whatever team acquires his services prior to the deadline. Because I think that any team – sorry, I'm fully transitioning back to Timo Meier here. I feel like any team that isn't considering pursuing Timo Meier, and maybe their reasoning for not pursuing him is because of that qualifying offer, is really doing this wrong. Because if I was sort of one of those like contending teams that would not be able to afford an extension, like just don't have the money for it, I would pursue him as a $3 million rental. That's $6 million with 50% retained, which is what he makes. A $3 million rental, and then you trade his rights in the offseason.
Yeah.
Like, did you see what Chicago got for the rights, or for Alex DeBrincat in a 1-year deal? Like, if you trade... Oh, wait, that's not a very good comparison.
I kind of low-key love that you brought this up, because I just listened to a conversation about how, like, everybody is assuming that Meier is going to go to kind of like a sign-and-trade situation. But what if a team like Carolina or now Vegas with their LTIR money want him for a year and then flip him out for whatever they can get him?
Toronto could do it too.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about Toronto, which is very interesting.
I would be so fired up if Carolina did that, though.
Yeah,
that's sort of the move that I want to see.
Need. Yeah,
that's a we're coming for you, Boston move.
Yeah,
because you get the guy for $3 million for your playoff run, and then you trade his rights. Like, I don't know if it's a perfect example, but I think it's the most similar one in recent history. Matthew Tkachuk. Matthew Tkachuk renegotiated a deal with Calgary at 8 years, $76 million at 9.5 per, and it was a sign and trade. He signed the extension, the 8-year extension with Calgary, and he was immediately traded to Florida for Huberdeau and Uyghur.
Yeah,
and any team acquiring Timo Meier could literally do exactly that with any team.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the Matthew Tkachuk trade is actually, like, I remember it being reported at the time. It was like the first actual sign and trade in NHL history or something like that. Because most of the time, it's just kind of like a mutually agreed upon that this is how it's going to work. When he gets to the new team, then he signs it. But this one, like, he actually signed the contract with Calgary and got traded immediately after. Like, that almost never happens in hockey.
The fact that it was called the first ever sign and trade was kind of a formality, though.
Yeah.
Because, like in theory, they happen all the time. But, like, by the logistics of it, it was absolutely the first ever sign and trade.
But, like, had we ever... I don't think... By that nature, then, I don't think we'd ever seen an 8-year sign and trade.
I don't know about that, because if you trade a player's rights, like, that new team can still extend them for 8 years.
You're right.
Whether or not they've happened, but you still have the ability to. I'm trying to think of an example. Mark Stone, when he was traded to Vegas, he pretty much signed his 8-year deal immediately.
Oh, yeah, that was an 8-year deal. Yeah, you're
right. So, like, it's kind of one of those things. I don't know if it's actually happened with a guy who didn't have a contract, which is what Matthew Tkachuk was. Mark Stone, I think, was mid-season, right?
Yeah.
So it just kind of depends. I'm not sure if there's ever been a restricted free agent traded his rights to a team and then them sign them for 8 years. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Like if Tkachuk had been dealt to Florida and then had to negotiate a deal, would it have still been allowed to be 8 years? I assume so, because he didn't actually hit free agency. I'm not sure. But yeah, so sort of circling back to Ottawa, maybe on that topic, they played Edmonton last night. Holy crap, McDavid is literally just... I've never seen him live. I was very excited to watch him play live, and he is literally the star. Like, he is a show. He is a show. He is a one-man show. And it's very rare that you can say that in the game of hockey, that one guy is the reason for a sellout, one guy is the reason one team is such a draw, but he is. Traffic before the game was absurd. A 12:30 start, no less. So people were like lined up at the Canadian Tire Center, 45. It was the AM when people were lining up at the Canadian Tire Center. It was insane. Both directions at both Terry Fox and the Palladium exits, which are the two exits you can take from the highway to get to the rink, were backed up in going both east and westbound. Just ridiculous. And he delivered. Like, he scored like 2 minutes into the game by banking it off of Forsberg. And then he had one of the most insane plays I've actually ever seen. He basically treated Thomas Chabot like a Pee Wee B defenseman, ripped the puck off of him, toyed with him a little bit, and then feathered a backhand saucer pass between he and Pinto to Ryan McLeod, who buried it. It was ridiculous. Anyone who hasn't seen it, please go see it. It might be the sickest individual play I've ever seen in person. Obviously, it could be some recency bias there, but definitely this season, and just a ridiculous performance by him. But the biggest story was actually sort of the injury situation, a completely sort of depressing third period for the Sens. They were tied 3-3 going into the third after a 2-goal second period. And Edmonton ended up running away with it. They won 6-3. But in the process, Jake Sanderson took it wasn't a high hit. It was a hit from whatever his name, Desharnais, number 73 on Edmonton. Bit of a goon. I think he's kind of like an AHL tweener guy. He crushed Sanderson, and Sanderson's back sort of bent over the boards. I noticed it. I was like, that didn't look good. But then he skated off, so it seemed like it might have been fine. But he went back. He's going to be out minimum of 10 days. I think that's just because he's on IR. I'm not exactly sure. And then the biggest one was Anton Forsberg during a net front scrum. Travis Hamonic pushes Zach Hyman onto Forsberg and held him there. So it came out that Hyman could hear Forsberg screaming in pain, and he couldn't get off of him because Travis Hamonic was just pushing down on him, because Travis Hamonic has a brick for brains. And
if you kind of watch the clip, you can see Hyman kind of visibly concerned because he can hear, or I assume he can hear Forsberg scream. And then, like, as soon as the goal goes in, you can see him, like, Hyman, that is, very hesitant to go, like, actually celebrate with his teammates because Forsberg's just lying on the ice in complete pain, which we now know is 2 MCL tears. So, like, both of his knees just gave out, which is a completely, like...
I've never heard of that.
I've never heard of it. It's a crazy unlucky injury, and, like, I feel like I haven't really seen anyone suggest this yet, but I feel like that might be career-threatening. Like, that's absurd.
I think so, for a goalie.
Yeah.
The amount of tension that goes on your knees, like, he had to be stretchered off, obviously, but, like, how do you rehab 2 knees?
I don't know.
If you tear an MCL, I don't know from experience, but I know people who have torn MCLs and ACLs, and obviously just watching athletes sort of put out sort of the recovery process. You can rehab one leg, like, because you have your other leg for stability, and you're trying to build up the strength of your injured leg. But if you have both of your MCLs torn, you can't put any weight on either of your legs. Like, you're straight up in a wheelchair for the next few months. Like, I don't know how you rehab that.
Yeah,
like,
I don't know.
You're basically just relying on time. Like, you can't strengthen your knees because you can't use your other knee as a sort of resistance point so that your injured knee doesn't sort of give out. Like, if you're trying to, let's say, for example, you're trying to do a squat with a torn MCL. When you're going down to squat, I don't know if you'd actually squat if you have a torn MCL, but like just for example, you can put more weight on your healthy leg while building the strength of your injured leg. But if you have both knees are injured, you basically have to just wait until, I would assume, you basically just have to wait until both knees are healthy and then start building your strength back, because all of a sudden you haven't walked in 6 months and you've lost a ton of muscle.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see his path back, because like the Senators' goaltending position was already kind of very in flux with Talbot already hurt. And like he's still out for another couple months, so now Sogard is going to get a little bit of an opportunity to show what he's got here. Yeah. But like Forsberg still, I think, has 2 more years on his deal. So it'll be interesting to see if he can come back and like have good games in him. Like I just want to see him be able to come back, period. But like you said, the amount of time it's going to take to build up that strength again and actually come back and be an elite athlete like he needs to is going to be very difficult and probably take a long time.
This is the first year of Forsberg's 3-year deal that he signed.
Yeah.
It was a 3-year deal worth $2.75 million per. Honestly, I'm happy he got that because of this injury. Like, if it is career threatening, at least he got a bit of a payday. Otherwise, I'm not sure he maybe would have made enough to support himself, and maybe I don't know. I'm just happy he got his $8 million contract, which is significant money for a life. So. Because I have hesitations about whether or not his career will continue. I think he's going to be out for at least a year, and I think that's optimistic.
Yeah, and like he's kind of had an up and down year for Ottawa, but since he's gotten here off of waivers, he's been really consistent too. Kind of that perfect 1B guy, if you will. Like just today too, Jay Fresh kind of tweeted out, I think, wins above replacement goalies over the past 3 years. And Anton Forsberg is number 13 on that list.
Which is shocking.
Out of like 60 goalies. And Ottawa got him off waivers, and he's being paid like minimally compared to a lot of other goalies behind him on this list. So he's a very solid goaltender, and we just hope that he can come back and continue his career, really.
I'm incredibly curious, sort of just to move towards what the Sens do moving forward. I'd be very curious to see if Dorion shifts his focus to acquiring a goalie with term, because all of a sudden you don't have an NHL goalie next year.
Yeah,
like Forsberg is not going to be ready for the start of next season. I'm gonna call it right now. And Talbot's going to be a free agent and just hasn't been reliable, and he's also 35. So who knows what his plans are beyond this season? Mm-hmm. There's some names out there like Karel Vejmelka. He'll come at a price. Thatcher Demko, same thing. But both guys have term, and both guys can be a number 1 goalie. And I'm curious to see if maybe Dorion tables the defenseman talks now that especially Sanderson's hurt. Forsberg's out. Season's done. Season's been done.
Yeah.
But I think the loss and the injuries last night just really puts the nail in the coffin. I think, like, just as a reference point, I think Dom Luszczyszyn's model had them at like a 2 or 3% chance, so it kind of left the window open. That window's closed. It's 0. They're done.
After last night, you explore any trades possible for any UFAs. The only one I would consider bringing back if he wants to come back is Tyler Mott. If he would consider that, I don't know, but move all those possible and maybe look for some help in goaltender or defense if something can come with term. This is very clearly not a last-ditch effort to save this season or save your job, Dorion. Please don't something stupid like that.
Like, don't go get Dumba to try to replace Sanderson. Don't go get I don't even know what goalie rentals are out there, but I guess just Cam Talbot, really. But, I don't know. I just hope he doesn't have some sort of knee-jerk reaction to try to save a season that's already gone, and it's probably been gone. It's just this little 4-game winning streak sort of got people maybe a little bit excited again. But anyway. Okay, so that's kind of it for the Sens, unless you had anything else to add. Couple little points to make from last night.
Yeah, well, just before we get back to games from last night, one last little bit of news is it appears that the Edmonton Oilers are going to be moving on from Jesse Puljujarvi in one way or another here in the next day or two. It appears that they're trying to ferociously trade him in the next kind of 24 hours or so. I don't know why the rush. I'm assuming it has something to do with something else they're trying to do in bringing in kind of help elsewhere, but and moving his salary elsewhere. But if they can't trade him, it's been reported that likely Tuesday they will waive him. So it'll be interesting to see if anyone takes a flyer on him. I think somebody should, but the way this league works and how tight the caps are and people trying to operate right now, I would guess that he doesn't.
Yeah. Sorry, I kind of zoned out for a minute there. I started looking at Dallas's cap sheet for no reason. Just because I was kind of scrolling through some of the news, and it just like named off like some of the teams that are obviously in on the biggest names, like Chicago, Dallas, or not Chicago, oh my God, Carolina, Dallas, Toronto, whatever. But I think like a sneaky name in a lot of these big trade talks would be the Dallas Stars. I think they could do something huge.
Well, that appears to be the next place that people
the new spot for Kane.
Yeah.
I don't know if they could. But man, it'd be cool if there's so many cool fits for Timo Meier.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I want to see him go to the Devils. I think that makes way too much sense, but
I'm honestly almost over it. Like, it's been talked about so much that I'm almost like, okay, whatever. Like, I want someone else to get him now.
Yeah.
But did you hear what Elliot Friedman
stand pat now that both the Rangers and the Islanders have made moves?
No, they won't. That's the thing. But I think it'd be super interesting. And they'll be able to extend him very easily. Yeah. But I think it'd just be cool. Or not cool, but Elliot Friedman sort of came out on the 32 Thoughts podcast. It was either 32 Thoughts or the Jack Merrick show. And he basically said that New Jersey told San Jose, before you do anything with Timo Meier, you come to us to give us one last shot on the price.
I heard that too. That was crazy.
I thought that was pretty baller.
It is baller.
So, yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay, do you want to sort of move on to some of the smaller things that went down last night?
Yeah, in terms of last night, we had two pretty electric individual performances. We got 2 4-goal games, which equals the rest that we've seen from the rest of this season so far from both Panarin and Kempe. So in New York, we're kind of seeing some early fruits from that trade, and Tarasenko seems to be a pretty happy man playing next to Panarin at this point.
Yeah.
And then I didn't really see many of the highlights or anything from the Kempe thing. I just saw it when I woke up this morning. But what a season he's having! Like, holy crap!
Yeah, he's already got 22 goals this year. Easily going to eclipse 30. Just LA's good.
Yeah,
LA's really good.
And they're in the middle of like every rumor right now.
And yeah, it's crazy. Like, if they can maybe just go get, obviously the dream package is to go get Vejmelka and Chychrun.
Mm-hmm.
But like, people are talking about like they should. Sean Gentili of the Athletic Hockey Show, he's been linking Demko to LA forever.
Yeah.
Just because he wants to see it happen. He's not an insider or anything.
Yeah.
But that'd be awesome. And then obviously Chychrun as well. Like, can you imagine getting both those guys? Like, that'd be insane. And those are the kind of big plays that people have been waiting for from LA for so long. Obviously, they got Fiala. But it's also incredible, too, how the timeline of this team has changed like 3 different times.
Yeah.
They went from Doughty Kopitar, Dustin Brown, et cetera, to rebuilding, and you'd think the timeline was all these prospects, like the Quinton Byfield timeline and whatever. And then they sort of had an under-the-radar season a couple years ago. They signed Philip Deneau, and now the timeline has fully shifted to like Kevin Fiala and Sean Durzi, and hypothetically, if they bring in a Chychrun who's 24 and a Thatcher Demko who's like 26, it'd be very interesting. Like they keep on jumping timelines. It's very, very cool to see.
Yeah, they're definitely in a spot to kind of go for it now, and like they have like you said, they have a really good team right now, but they also have a crap ton of pretty attractive assets for teams that are looking to sell players off. So they're in a pretty good spot if they want to make a big swing.
Pittsburgh loses 6-0 to the aforementioned LA Kings. Sidney Crosby receives his first ever game misconduct. I'm surprised, to be completely honest. I'm going to try to find when in the game it happened, because in a 6-0 game, maybe the refs were just fed up. But,
yeah, I think it was fairly late.
But I mean, that's bold.
Yeah,
like Crosby out.
I would love to know who the ref was too, because like, could you imagine if it's like some rookie ref who's kicking Crosby out for the first time ever? Like, that'd be so funny.
The ref was Garrett Rank.
Never heard of him.
So apparently he was given the game misconduct after Crosby and Mikey Anderson both received 10-minute misconduct penalties, but Crosby's got elevated to a game misconduct, which carries an automatic ejection after continuing to chirp at referee Garrett Rank. I wonder what he said. I wonder if it was just a ref that was sensitive, or like just like, what do you say to a ref to get yourself kicked out? Unless you're like, I wonder what sort of the bare minimum, or what's like really not tolerated from officials, because it seems like they get it given to them. Like, some coaches berate them, it seems like, and they just get away with it.
You never see people thrown out of games anymore for like this kind of or like, you haven't even really seen it a lot historically for just like kind of chirping at the ref. Like, you might get an extra 2 or something like that, but you hardly ever see somebody get kicked out for it. And let alone Crosby. Like, Crosby is known to be like, maybe kind of under the radar dirty, but definitely not disrespectful towards like referees or anybody like that. So I'd be very curious to learn more of the details on that situation for sure.
That's what I was most surprised by, honestly.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have any other touching points? We're creeping up on an hour here, so maybe if we have 1 or 2 more things we want to discuss before wrapping up the show. I guess Dustin Brown's number was retired last night. I just wanted to maybe give a quick little shout out there. We went over Panarin's 4-goal game. You got anything, Ryan?
I don't think there's too much else. Like, there was there's a few interesting results last night, like Columbus beating Toronto. But
let's spend like 5 minutes putting together, because we didn't really talk about this as long as I think we should have. Like, Erik Karlsson was rumored to be traded to the Edmonton Oilers. Like, can you imagine what a bombshell that would be if that happens?
Yeah, how do they do it? Because they're right up.
That's what I was just about to say. Let's go try to put together some sort of Edmonton package. So right off the bat, I'm doing a 2023 first and Philip Broberg have to be in that deal, I think. Do you think so?
Likely, especially if you want them to take 50%.
Yeah. Like, Tyson Barrie makes 4.5. That almost gets you there. So 50% retention would be 5 3/4. And I think if you do Broberg and a first, that really sort of entices San Jose to retain 50% salary. I would hope so anyway.
And then you just throw in Puljujarvi, no?
Yeah. Do you think that gets it done? So Jesse Puljujarvi, who's making what? $3 million. Tyson Barrie at $4.5 million, and Philip Broberg, along with a first-round pick, an unprotected first-round pick. Do you think that gets it done? Because then you can even do dollar in, dollar out, so San Jose doesn't have to retain 50%. It'd probably be like 35% at that point. Because all of a sudden you're sending them 7.5 plus Philip Broberg's entry-level contract. So that's almost $8.5 million. That's only about $3 million retention.
I mean, if there's any trade, that's probably it. Or pretty close to it.
Or get San Jose to take on Darnell Nurse's contract. That'd be wild, though.
That would be wild.
Connor McDavid and Erik Karlsson's contracts on the same book.
Yeah.
That's nuts. And then I don't think Leon Draisaitl's long for the Oilers, but if he is, like, his number's going to be probably in the 13s by the time he needs a new contract in 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So they could potentially have all three of those guys. I don't know. It's interesting. Send Evander Kane back to San Jose.
That would be tough.
Yeah, I think Edmonton could do it, but I don't know. They should take those assets and go get Jakob Chychrun, who is just as good and cheaper and younger.
Yeah, and makes way more sense. But
yeah, but who knows?
But
all
Ken
right.
Holland gonna Ken Holland.
All right, Ryan, what do you think?
I think that might be it for this Super Bowl Sunday.
Is that it for this Super Bowl Sunday? Maybe we wait until after the Super Bowl to put the episode up. Oh, one more note before we wrap up the show. Ryan and I are in the process of conducting sort of trade deadline previews for each of the 7 Canadian NHL teams. We finished up one yesterday. That'll come out relatively soon. And in the build-up to the deadline, we want to hit all 7 teams. So that's Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, Winnipeg, Edmonton, Calgary, and Vancouver. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to try to find either a fan, someone that kind of covers the team in a similar way that sort of we cover the NHL. I say that in quotations, covering. But yeah, we just want to get someone who's a fan of the team, follows them closely, whatever, to come on, talk about their team for a bit, and basically release 7 episodes, each with a different Canadian team in the lead up to the deadline, which is in about 3 weeks. So look forward to that. We should have one coming out maybe later this week or next week. And they'll come out as we do them. So just look forward to that. So Ryan has played the outro. I like pointing out when he does that. That'll do it for this 8th episode. Look forward to touching again on Tuesday.